Hello and welcome to Big Nostalgia. This is a podcast where we talk about games from our childhood. We go back, we reminisce, and we talk about games that we really enjoyed playing as kids, what we liked about them, what we remember fondly, what we might not remember fondly. My name is Vicky.
And I'm Phil. And
this week we'll be looking at Super Mario Galaxy, which is a good game to reminisce on. But I'll pass it over to Phil.
Or is it? What if we revisit Mario Galaxy and find that actually the whole world was wrong? It was bad.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. You might be surprised, but you probably won't. So this is our second 3D Mario game of the season. And not the last 3D Mario game that we're covering. Are we covering too many Mario games? Probably. But we haven't got time to debate that. We're going to head to space instead. So Super Mario Galaxy was released at the end of 2007. So that was November in Japan, North America, Europe and Australia. Near the beginning of the month for Japan until through to the end of the month for Australia. It was also released on Android on the 22nd of March 2018. This was for the Nvidia Shield. If you've been listening to Season 3, you'll know that the Nvidia Shield, as a way of distributing Chinese ports, has come up quite a few times. In fact, it came up in our Mario Kart Wii episode because it actually was never released in China for whatever reason. However, this one's got some interesting bits of its own, because when you look at the Chinese port of Mario Galaxy, it appears to have been done in 2008, 10 years before it was actually released in China. And that's because around that time, there was talks that the IQ, which was typically the way that Nintendo games were released in China, was under the IQ systems. They were going to make an IQ equivalent of the Wii, and that ended up being cancelled. So, clearly, the evidence suggests that the Chinese localization was done in 2008, because when you power up a game and at the bottom it's got like the copyright, it had 2007-2008, but it was not released in China until it was released on the Shield in 2018. So that's a bit strange. Anyway, let's talk about its development. So we've talked about Super Mario Sunshine, which was a game that came before this. We're picking the story up right after Super Mario Sunshine's release. So Nintendo opened a new Tokyo office, and the director from Super Mario Sunshine, Yoshiaki Koizumi, went there to work on DK Jungle Beat, which was like a rhythm game for the GameCube, which we never played, but the only reason I know much about it is, I'm not sure if you'd have seen pictures, Vicky, of like the bongo drum peripheral. Like you could play it with a pair of bongo drums.
I do remember seeing that, and I do feel that they use that a bit in the Super Smash character for his Final Smash as well. They really put in the bongo drums.
Yeah, that's his Final Smash. But did you see the physical controller? Like the players were playing with it.
I always thought that was a marketing I didn't know that was an actual controller.
No, that was an actual controller you could play the game with.
Oh dear! What, like the Pokeball for the latest Pokemon game?
Yeah.
Just a bit like one hit wonder.
I mean, you
got
say
a
that,
spare like £50 sort of thing.
It's one of those things where it's interesting to look up the amount of games that have been beaten with those bongo drums, because obviously you can. It's still a controller. Like the slap in each bit still corresponds to a button press.
Oh, okay. So the way you play the bongos determines which way you move?
I guess so. I don't really know, but I've seen.
Oh, that'd be funny to watch.
I've seen videos of like people have like beaten like Dark Souls or whatever with like the bongo drums. Or something ridiculous. That might not be an example, but you know what I mean. Like some really serious game, and they're like boom, 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 boom.
Well, that sounds a lot more relevant than the Pokeball.
Yes. Well,
you can only use that in Pokemon.
That's true. So anyway, Yoshiaki Koizumi went there to work on DK Jungle Beat. Series producer Shigeru Miyamoto stayed in Kyoto, where the main office was, and in this time they worked on the port of Super Mario 64 to Nintendo DS, with Super Mario 64 DS, which was a launch title on the Nintendo DS. So then, to continue this story, we then have to kind of almost do a bit of a jump back to some of the information that I introduced during the Sunshine episode. And actually, Vicky introduced during the Pikmin episode, which was the Super Mario 128 tech demo, with the lots of Marios all climbing around on the curved surface. So we've mentioned this demo a few times. I mentioned in the Sunshine episode that there was 2 projects that came off the back of this. One was called Super Mario 128, and the other was called the 100 Marios project, and directly built off the tech demo. Elements from that went to use in Pikmin. A third Mario project was then started by Yoshiaki Koizumi, and that became Super Mario Sunshine. So if you haven't watched our Sunshine episode, you can go back to that to learn about that third project. The remaining 2 were in an on and off development for years. Elements from them kept getting taken for other games. Shigeru Miyamoto teased Mario 128 to the press every now and again, but they never appeared at any of the shows. As the years went on, Miyamoto became too busy as a producer to direct these projects, and Koizumi's team actually took over the 100 Marios project, in particular the kind of curved surfaces that they had made for that tech demo. I've read differing things on this next bit, because there is a quote in a 2007 interview that Koizumi did with IGN, where Koizumi says that he repurposed what had been done for that tech demo to take place on a sphere, on a planet, and then he pitched it to Miyamoto, and once Miyamoto saw it, he was like, oh, this is a great idea, you should make a Mario game. The other way round I've heard it is in the Iwata Asks for Mario Galaxy, where apparently Miyamoto had been pushing for spherical planets.
Oh, okay.
So the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
All we know is that Project Demo has a lot to answer for when it comes to Mario inspiration games around about that time for the Wii.
For a quote-unquote unreleased game, it seems to sure have spawned a lot of games, is what we'll say. And also, but one thing that is kind of quite well recorded is that after DK Jungle Beat, basically, Miyamoto went to them and was like, well, what do you want to work on next? And they were like, and the Tokyo team was quite small compared to the Kyoto team, because the office had only been recently established for DK Jungle Beat. And they were pitching like smaller games and original ideas, and apparently he encouraged them to think about established series. And then with the tech demo as well, it started to become, well, why don't you work on a Mario game? And I think some of the developers, especially the ones that had only recently joined this Tokyo studio, were like, you know, being called up to work on Mario is like being called up to like the big leagues, you know.
So they were quite surprised.
Yeah.
It's really good inspiration though, and motivation that he showed in his team to basically say, look, we don't want small fry, think bigger.
I guess Koizumi had proven himself with Sunshine, so I guess maybe they thought he was a safe pair of hands at the top, and so maybe it was faith put in him. Because due to the game being developed in Tokyo and not Kyoto, there were some changes in staff compared to Sunshine anyway. So Takashi Tezuka, who was a producer on Sunshine, did not come back to be a producer on Galaxy because he was in Kyoto. Instead, a new producer was brought in called Takeo Shimizu. Mm-hmm. The only real person from Kyoto that was involved was Miyamoto. Despite being based in Kyoto, he would still play builds of the game. Basically, he'd play builds, send them feedback, or he would make the trip to go visit the team whilst they worked on the game. And at times, they actually had it set up so they would... I guess it was some kind of streaming. They were able basically to do live demonstrations to him, even though he was in Kyoto.
So streaming before streaming was a thing?
Yeah, or they'd make sure that he had the exact same build in front of him that they did, so that they could kind of talk him through it and things like that.
That's good then.
But in terms of the concept, like the concept of the spherical planets, it was very clear in Koizumi's head that, and some of the development team got it, but others were like a bit skeptical because you don't immediately think a spherical planet might make for like fun gameplay. You might feel like that just seems really complicated. So what happened was he took a small team and just literally built a demo of Mario on a spherical world. So this took 3 months to make, but it was kind of enough to convince everyone in the development team of the viability
and the vision
because they just couldn't picture it in their heads.
Well, let's be honest, games before then were very much from a 3D one version sort of perspective, weren't they?
Yeah.
So of course, there was a lot of indie, like there's lots of games who are always trying to push with the viewpoints, but this was quite a lot out of people's comfort zones, and actually trying to picture a game like Mario Galaxy before Mario Galaxy existed. I mean, it was a big deal when it came out, just because of the angles, a lot more complications that they had to kind of think of due to like viewpoints, and also like more they can do. I mean, look what they've done with it. I think a lot of Mario Odyssey's hidden gems and stuff like that are due to what they learn in Mario Galaxy.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, Odyssey is almost like a big pull together of all the ideas across the Mario series, really, which I think is really good.
But there's certain bits that just come to mind when it comes to Mario Galaxy, just because of the viewpoints that you have to work with. And of course, like, if you're working on, say, one level and you hit through a block and then you get flipped up and now you're on the bottom of that same level, it brought in a lot of elements.
Yeah. Well, gravity ended up being kind of the main theme of Galaxy as a result. So some of the developers, however, in interviews kind of since, were saying that they were skeptical even as development continued.
Oh, wow.
And they only actually changed their mind when they went to things like E3 or Nintendo World Conferences and saw players having fun with it.
Isn't that a bit late in the game to get on board?
I mean, to be fair, like it's being a team player by being like, well, you know, we're going with what the majority say, but still having a little bit of skepticism can be healthy. But yeah, it said when they saw like the playtest and how much fun everyone was having and how much they were getting the concept, because I think that was a big worry
that people wouldn't get it.
Yeah. In this kind of era as well, the president of Nintendo, Satoru Iwata, was also asking development teams that the general public would be able to play it, because Sunshine was deemed to be quite difficult, which I think is true. So they basically, essentially, Iwata's rule at the time was that the Nintendo game should be playable for anyone from the age of 5 to 95. That doesn't mean they need to complete it. We'll come back to kind of that. Yeah. But they should be able to have fun with it.
They should be able to pick up a controller, understand the concept, and be able to play a level.
Yeah. So anyway, the development was underway. I just included this because it was interesting, but during an interview with Vice, Koizumi described Miyamoto as sometimes not having a subject in his sentences and speaking in riddles. And occasionally he'd come in, like, say something and then leave. And no one knew what he was talking about. Like, it took them a while to be like, what was that about? What
was he... Do we understand that? No? Okay, we'll just go with it.
So, I mean, Miyamoto was already notorious for doing what they called in Japan flipping the tea table, which is a reference to some Japanese media. Basically, it means he would come in with an idea that would completely disrupt everything that was going on. And, like, teams would have to kind of scramble to use it, or it would completely throw a plan out of whack and they'd have to kind of rally. So, I already included this because I was like, despite the fact, obviously, he's considered to be a legend, Miyamoto does sound like he's a pain in the ass.
To actually work with the guy.
But obviously he also helped them out a great deal and was able to help them through like any troubles they came into with his suggestions. So, you know, so it's a balance, isn't it, really? But he is well known for a reason. Creative,
inspirational people are normally kind of a wackadoodle sort of level. And there's a potential wackadoodle in them.
Eccentric.
Potato.
So Mario's new big thing in this game was the spin, which was basically introduced to help with travelling around 3D platforms with the changing gravity, because obviously you hang in the air a bit longer. And also they wanted a way to more easily defeat enemies, because it was less reliable to jump on them with all the gravity and like the spherical worlds and things. It's more difficult for a player to judge their jump.
Yeah.
So jumping was actually downplayed a bit for the combat, and that's why the spin is a primary way of dispatching enemies. In order to make the game easy to pick up, obviously they wanted to make it easy for people to pick up, but also Iwata did. They kind of had the idea that they were not going to use more than kind of 2 buttons, like in terms of like action buttons, so it wasn't going to be very complicated controls wise. So originally, when they were developing it very early, before the Wiimote was known about, it was going to be kind of a spin of the analog stick on the GameCube controller was going to be the spin, and then you'd have the jump, and that was basically going to be your moveset.
Okay.
So they said it became very useful actually when they had the Wii remote and they realised you could just shake the Wii remote because that keeps it nice and simple. Because in the end, at the end, all you've got the nunchuck to move, A to jump, B to shoot star bits, and then you just shake the remote. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Everything else is to do with cameras. Starbit shooting actually started as they were considering what would be a good follow-up to shooting water and sunshine, because they enjoyed how spraying water allowed Mario to interact with his environments. So shooting star bits allowed for on the smaller scale, but the same kind of thing, because you could stun enemies, you could hit little glowing patches and get coins out of them for health, that kind of thing. It doesn't mean that this was the only thing considered, though, because in the game data there are still animations for Mario doing his punches from Mario 64, but clearly that must have been from maybe an earlier build of the game, before they introduced the spin attack instead.
Well, they must have maybe, you said they had made that demo for 3 months. There's potentially stuff they put on there and gave it a little try. I can understand, like, because of the different sizes of the spherical planets in Mario Galaxy, you can think from a playable perspective. Definitely when you're trying to think of an interesting play through, that you want it to, you don't want to move that sends you so far you can't, the camera is like lagging behind, or like the long jump sort of thing. Whereas the spin move kind of keeps you into the atmosphere, as it were. It keeps you in sight.
Although there is still the long jump in this game, that is one of the returning moves.
Yeah.
So on the camera, actually, there is no way to control the camera much. You can do a little bit with the D-pad, but this is, whilst at times it's a bit clunky, this was on purpose, because they said whilst they were doing playtests for Sunshine, it was almost like an extra decision for the player because they had a free roaming camera, and they said that sometimes players were just like getting caught up in, where do I put the camera?
Yeah.
So having the camera kind of automatically act and having a lot of focus on the camera meant that was like one less thing, like the player could just play kind of thing rather than worry about it. Well, we can go into what we think about it when we get later into this video, but that was kind of their idea at the time. They also, at one point, once the motion controls got shown off, experimented with more motion controls for controlling Mario, but decided to tone it down and make it closer to traditional Mario. Which is a good idea. I'm glad they did that, because
It worked well.
I think that this and Twilight Princess being in development around the same time, just to having your shake of the Wii Remote be essentially an additional action button, works really well, because it doesn't require too much precision with the motion controls.
Agreed.
Level design, generally, they actually found was quite easy compared to other Mario games, because it was all self-contained planets. So if you found that your level was too long or too short or too difficult or too easy, you could just change the planets around without changing too much else. So the game was never going to be a launch title. It only started development in 2005. That was going to be too much to push for, especially since how Sunshine had been rushed to release. So it was not going to be on the system at launch. But obviously, a Nintendo console having a Mario game is a big deal. So it was still revealed at E3 2006, along games that actually were launch titles like Twilight Princess and Wii Sports. It was then going to supposedly be out in early 2007, but it was delayed to November 2007, so it appeared at E3 2007 again. Quotes from the developers, because I think there's quotes that say things like, I'm sure they'd have loved it to be a launch title, that flight around with regards to this game, but it was never actually a launch title. It was always going to be a 2007 launch, it was just delayed within 2007. One of the reasons the launch was delayed was that the game also had a higher than usual number of playtesters to help test the concept it was introducing, and how to balance how the camera worked, and reduce motion sickness, that kind of thing.
That's fair enough.
In fact, it was Shimizu, the producer, he got motion sick from games really easily, so they tested the game on him a lot.
The poor guy. You feel sick, play more.
Basically, if he didn't get sick, it was alright. And I just thought that was interesting, because I don't get motion sick, but you've got motion sick, I think, from Galaxy, haven't you?
I have. I don't particularly like the headsets and the 3D and all 4D and all that sort of stuff. But of course, Galaxy wasn't that. I think when I first started playing it, the very concept of the game, when you're trying to catch that bunny at the very, very beginning, It took me a little while just to get my head around it. But it's one of those games that if you do it enough times, you soon get used to it. And compared to other games that have made me feel motion sickness, this was barely anything. It was just once your brain kind of got around it's a 3D planet, it was absolutely fine. So I think it was a really good idea that they tested on someone who suffered from motion sickness playing it. Because I think if they hadn't, then I'm not sure if I'd ever played the game. Because I suffer from it quite a bit when it comes to gaming. So I think that helped a lot that they did, the poor guy though, but tested it on the motion sickness test dummy.
So on to the characters. This is a 3D Mario game after all, so we know how this goes. You got your Mario with his spin attack, which is new. You've got Peach inviting Mario over for cake, which first time she's done that since Mario 64, because they didn't do it in Sunshine. You got Bowser, who's in space now. You've got Bowser Jr., who is back for his second appearance. His second appearance in a 3D Mario game after the last 3D Mario game where he was introduced. You've got Luigi, which is for the first time in a 3D Mario game because he wasn't in 64 and he wasn't in Sunshine.
Oh, poor Luigi.
You've got the Toads. Specifically, you've got Captain Toad, the introduction of him and his Toad Brigade.
So when did Luigi's Mansion came out? Well, that wasn't a 3D... I suppose it wasn't a 3D Mario game, but...
No, it was a 3D Luigi game, you'd call it.
Yeah, so this is specifically a Mario 3D game.
Yeah, so the Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, Super Mario Galaxy, Galaxy 2, Odyssey.
I don't know why I feel sorry for him. I don't particularly like him, so...
We know. You've got, obviously, Bowser's Legions are all kind of back. You've got, like, Kamek and the Magic Koopas, Goombas, Koopa Troopers. You got a few new like alien enemies, but it's pretty standard Mario characters all back again. The most notable new character is Rosalina, who lives on the Comet Observatory, which is the hub world for the game. She lives there with the Lumas, which is again a new introduction, which are star-like creatures who help you on your quest and can also take the form of rabbits. Rosalina was at one point going to be related to Peach and actually look more similar to Peach, but this was changed during development. A change for the better, in my opinion. I think it is better that she's a bit more distinct. Another change during development was to make Rosalina taller. This was a suggestion from Hideki Kono, who was the manager at Nintendo EAD. In an interview, he explained that he wanted to put Rosalina in Mario Kart Wii, but needed her body type to be more different from existing characters. So making her taller made her a heavyweight racer and helped her to stand out in that way, because there were no heavyweight female racers up to that point. Because Peach, Daisy are average, and you've got your baby Peach and your baby Daisy that are small.
Well, if you think about it for the female characters, especially when you're talking like Peach, Daisy and Rosalina, everyone knows Daisy is basically a carbon copy of Peach. And in a lot of games, they use exactly the same sort of dynamics and stuff like that, apart from the colour of her dress and the colour of her hair. So it is quite nice that they, as you said, they didn't make her relation, and they were trying to think, let's try and do something a bit more with the character, let's get her to stand out, let's let her be her own character rather than just another copy.
Yeah, exactly. And also just like there was an event at one point during development, she had like a beehive hair, You know, where it's all like bunched up in like a pile.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And like that was when they were going with the princess design, and it just would have been
A bit much.
yeah,
Bit
or
old-fashioned.
like her designer's done. Yoshi was planned to be in this game, but they ended up leaving him out as they felt that the other new mechanics would make it too much all at once.
That's fair enough.
Because you're getting used to the spins and the jumps and the gravity, also having Yoshi and all his mechanics, they felt that was too much for one game. So in this game, he is only referenced by the fact that there is a planet in the shape of his head
Yeah.
at one point. But Yoshi will be in our episode next week when we cover Galaxy 2, so
Well,
he won't left out for long.
It is nice when concept that you find doing research on games then get shown, a bit like the Pikmin 1 to Pikmin 2, get shown in the next game. So either due to design aesthetics, playable elements like in this case, or even down to consoles and what the consoles can actually bring to the table. So it is good when their original ideas can eventually get into games, even if it is in the second version or even the third.
Well, that's the thing. It's nice when you can go back and like reuse ideas that for whatever reason you weren't able to fully realise the first time round. Some characters kind of come back, but they're technically like different. Like Shadow Mario doesn't come back from Sunshine, but instead you've got like Cosmic Mario, who is still very similar looking. Well, obviously this one's not secretly Bowser Jr. This one is just like a character you race. There is also, do you remember there being a whale in Galaxy that you have to race?
Yes.
So apparently that was originally going to be a dolphin, like the dolphins in the original like Mario World game.
Oh, okay.
For the SNES, but he was changed to be like bigger and buffer and angrier during development.
He basically went to the gym.
He
got some swans that are sick.
Got too big to be a dolphin. Story. So, I'm not sure if you've ever played any Mario game ever. Mario gets invited to the castle. Bowser steals Peach. Mario pursues into space. Mario gets blown into the dark, cold void of space, never to be seen again, but he gets saved. So this is actually pretty much a return to the classic Mario formula after Sunshine obviously took it completely differently.
Well, I know we talked about it last week, but I did like how Mario Sunshine was trying something new, but obviously there was a lot of feelings that it wasn't done very well. So I suppose definitely if the last Super Mario 64 was the last 3D Mario of that sort of structure, it must have been quite nice to just go back to the old formula. They're like, this works, people like this. This is a good concept just to like start off on. I know we haven't gone into it a lot yet, but I do like how in the Mario games they seem to do a bit more than the standard storyline as well. They add extra content after you reach the end and save Princess Peach. It's not just the base game anymore.
So there is some interesting stuff on that, because you might have thought it was from kind of outside reception, but actually, as it turns out, the whole thing on Mario's story is kind of an ongoing battle between Yoshiaki Koizumi and Shigeru Miyamoto.
Oh, okay.
Because Yoshiaki Koizumi, he did like a film degree and has always wanted to put more story elements into Mario and Zelda games. In Galaxy, he does this through the storybook. In the library, you go in and you get the storybook, which is Rosalina's backstory.
Yes.
But Koizumi is often at odds with Miyamoto, who thinks that the story should be as simple as possible and the gameplay should be prioritised above all else. And they end up being at odds. We're going to find them at odds again when we talk about Mario Galaxy 2. But this is why, because it was Koizumi who put the story into Sunshine. And then I'm guessing he probably would have put a similar story into Galaxy, but Miyamoto was like, no, and had to rein him in a bit.
Well, that is an interesting concept. What should be prioritised? Should it be the story or the gameplay? Because sometimes you get a really, really a really good story, and you love playing it, but actually to play the game is super complicated or super annoying, so you don't actually find out the end of the story because it takes too much effort to get there, because it gets to, I feel a little bit like that for the Metroid games because I find them quite difficult. The storyline always seems really good, but the actual gameplay is too hard. But that just is like personal. Or should you? You don't really want a boring storyline, but a bog standard one. A lot of critiques on the Mario and Zelda franchise is it is the same sort of story again. Princess gets captured by Bowser, off they go. Mario goes and saves them, but it's the focus more on all the good points of the games come from the actual gameplay, how each game is made differently and it's a lot more engaging than the last, or new mechanics. So it really depends on the type of gamer you are, but it is an interesting thing to think about which one is more important, because I'd say they're equally important. It all depends what sort of game you want to produce, rather than a good or bad game from either outcome, because I can think of many games that are good and bad from each outcome, so it's not exactly a recipe for a success, but I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting how they often find themselves at odds over it, but obviously the end result we end up with in Galaxy is kind of the meet in the middle point, because you can learn all about Rosalina's backstory through the book, but the broader story, and it introduces a lot of new, in quotes, Mario lore with new characters and worlds and things, but the base story is still the same.
Also, I think it was good that they didn't make her like part of Peach's family then. It gave him the freedom to be a little bit more making the lore and giving her background and making it a lot more interesting in that sense, which is probably why she didn't end up just being, I don't know, Peach's mum or something.
Yeah. Peach's long lost cousin.
From space.
Cousins from space.
Space.
But actually the storybook itself, Koizumi wanted to actually sell it as an actual storybook for kids, but it just never happened.
That would have been cool.
I think that would have been a nice little collectible thing. I'm surprised that no one's actually done it just as a fan thing.
Oh, yeah, that would be.
I mean, you'd be what, cease and desisted into the ground by Nintendo before you could send the first one out, but
I mean, if there's a cookbook of all the recipes that Link now makes in Breath of the Wild, then there should be a storybook of Rosalina's backstory.
Yeah, you just be very creative to get around all the copyrights and trademarks and things.
There was a lady, let's not say her name, but she lived in space.
We can't say Comet Observatory, so we're going to say Meteorite House.
Yeah, Meteorite House. I was going to go Comment of Loveliness, but it still had Comet in it. Meteorite House with the Lumas.
With the Moolahs. So, and you were saying about how, about Mario games and having post-game. So, in Mario Galaxy, you went and defeated Bowser when you get 60 stars, but then there's like 60 more stars. And then when you get 120 stars, you unlock Luigi, and you can do the whole thing again if you want.
Yeah. So
this is how they hit that desire to be playable by people aged 5 to 95, is because you don't need to be very good at games to beat the game. You can get to 60 stars just by going to the levels that are easier and just doing the easier stars. If you want more of a challenge, you can get the back 60, you can get the remaining 60 stars and beat the game 100%. Your reward for that is unlocking Luigi, and then you've got the option to go for it again with Luigi, whose physics are different because he's a high jumper. He's got less traction, so that means when you release, he doesn't stop straight away, he slides. He's faster, but he takes longer to reach top speed. He loses air faster underwater, something I never realised. And also, his Cosmic Luigi races are harder than Cosmic Mario races. So you've got that kind of different experience if you then are one of those 100% completionists. And I think that kind of balance, and that's kind of continued into more recent Mario games, I think has really been beneficial, because like, if you're new to gaming, you can just have a bit of fun with Odyssey, but then you've got Dark Side of the Moon, Darker Side of the Moon, you've got, the Champions Road in 3D World, like all these things to make it so if you want a challenge, it is there for you. Luigi, in fact, started off as an experiment. So they experimented with Luigi in the game engine and had fun playing with him. So Miyamoto suggested that he was a reward for playing.
Oh, okay.
The thing that I've always found weird about it, though, is that there are two Luigis in Luigi's story, because they don't swap Luigi for Mario.
So whenever you find him in the story, it's like you're talking to yourself. Yeah, I think that was a little bit lazy. Like, I understand, but at the same time, I don't think it would have taken them a lot to just change the Luigi sitting there to the Mario sitting there.
Yeah. It always
Or even just have
the
the space blank.
Just,
Or like a Toad sitting there like, Luigi's out at the moment. Oh, hi, Luigi.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a few stars where you'd have to save something, I guess. Maybe, or like a plush of Luigi, just as a little joke. So he's not in the place, it's just a motionless plush.
And then that would be good for merchandising.
You can sell that, yeah. We just gave them $1 million idea.
Along with the book. $2 million idea.
At least. Maybe even 2.005.
Now you're pushing the boat out.
Bosses in the game. Do you remember any of the bosses?
The Piranha Plant, the very first one.
Dino Piranha, yeah?
Yeah,
and
because...
Fiery Dino Piranha.
Because, of course, I played Mario Galaxy before playing Sunshine. And, of course, one of the very early levels of Sunshine, you find the Piranha Plant. I think it's like the first one or whatever.
Yeah,
at the top
Piranha.
Of... Yeah, and I was just like, hey, that's where you started out live.
Yeah.
So, yeah, wasn't there an octopus?
King Caliente?
I do love the names. It just feels like they have so much fun with the names. Like when they have King Caliente. Bowser?
Obviously, yeah, you fight Bowser a few times.
Those are the ones that stick out to me.
Do you remember Bugaboom?
Bugaboom.
The bug you have to beat as B Mario by flying on top of it and pounding on its back.
Kind of.
Mega Leg, which was the robot you have to climb up.
Oh, yeah. I just couldn't remember didn't remember the name.
And then there's Mecca Bowser, which is also a different robot you have to climb up, but that's in the Toy Galaxy and it looks like a toy Bowser.
Oh. Yes.
You've got Major Burrows, which was the mole.
Yeah, he was annoying.
The Bouldergeist, which was the ghost boulder monster.
Ooh.
With the two big fists. Top Maniac, which is the spinning top enemy.
Oh, that makes sense.
Tarantox, which was the weird spider thing that you have to use those sling things to kill.
That was annoying.
Baron Brrr. Which
Say
is basically just
names.
one of those floating ice thingies, but it was really big.
Yeah.
Kingfin, which was like the bone shark, and it was an underwater battle.
Oh, I never like underwater battles, but yeah.
There's a few more, but those are the ones with the good names. Like, there's a boss that's just called Stink Bug Parent, and that's just like, you could have tried. The rest of them are trying at least.
Yeah, you could have at least called him like Gary, and then put Stink Bug.
Gary the Stink Bug.
No, Gary the Stink Bug Parent. I'm okay with Gary the Parent. Just give him a name. Parents have name too, you know.
So yeah, that's most. There's one or two like mini bosses and things, but that's like the majority of like. I think the memorable ones are like the Dino, the Octopus, Mega Leg. I remember, but yeah, it was a nice variety of bosses in this game with like different methods to like defeat them. So moving on to like more of the kind of the design of the game. So this is the first game where Mario has only 3 health. So this is down from being 8 in 64 and Sunshine. But it can be extended to 6 with the special life mushroom. So believe it or not, this was part of the balancing act of the game, was because they made Mario have less health, but they gave out 1-ups like everywhere. So that was to make it so like it would be a thing about keep on having attempts, rather than maybe in 64 or Sunshine where you'd get damaged and then maybe you'd fall off something and you'd end up just getting lost and confused. Mm-hmm. This, it'd basically kill you and give you another chance.
Yeah, start back at your latest save point sort of thing. Fresh, ready to go. You know what's kind of coming ahead.
Yeah. The new power-ups in Mario Galaxy. Name those power-ups.
B Mario.
Yep. Apparently, at first, no one liked the design, so it had to be redone and refined. And it was also originally going to be a curse, as in it wasn't going to be a power-up. It was going to be like an affliction that got Mario, and the point was to get rid of it.
Oh,
But
okay.
people were like, no one, like the development team kind of didn't really like that, so they flipped it round and made it kind of a power-up.
Yeah. Power-ups for Mario as well sound a bit more positive than a curse. I curse you to be a bee. Try and get rid of it.
Every full moon you will become a bee.
Buzz, buzz, motherfucker. I don't actually remember any of the power-ups.
Do you remember Boo Mario?
That was quite handy. You could go through walls, couldn't you?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
other ghosts just loved Boo Mario for whatever reason.
Yeah, he was like a superstar wherever he went.
Spring Mario?
I didn't particularly, that one was
I
alright.
thought it was a bit of an annoying one to time your big jumps, because you kind of had to hit A at the right time to do a high jump for it.
Or like misjudge it sort of thing.
Yeah, supposedly for that one, the team wanted to power up where Mario was just always jumping, so I guess, yeah, mission accomplished.
Yep.
Rainbow Mario, which is technically just this game's version of Invincible Mario.
Yeah.
But it did look cool.
It did look very cool.
And do you remember Flying Mario, which was only ever used for 1 star?
Well then it feels a little bit pointless then, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it was always a weird one. It was when you went back to the starting planet, and you had to get the purple coins, and it was the one where you spin and you go flying, and you had like a black cap and red and black overalls with a red undershirt.
Oh, fair enough.
And then you'd be able to fly around the game's hub afterwards. So it wasn't really used for much in the actual levels outside of that one.
So it feels a bit of a missed opportunity.
Yeah, it felt a bit underdeveloped.
Mm.
But I suppose it could have broken too many levels, because you could just... It was
Fly
timed,
to the
but
end.
you could just fly.
Yeah.
Speaking of overpowered power-ups, do you know the 2 returning power-ups?
Returning. So Metal Mario?
No.
No. Fire Mario.
Yep.
Yep. It wouldn't be Penguin Mario. I always like Penguin Mario.
You're on the right track.
Ice Mario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they found that those 2 were too overpowered if they didn't have a time limit, so they found that, one, the time limit meant that they couldn't just be used for the whole level, because Fire Mario could take out enemies from the other side of the level.
Yeah, in the whole lava land sort of thing.
Yeah. But they also found that it was more fun for players, because you had that time crunch of having to figure out what you needed to do with the level within the time limit. You couldn't just like wander around the water as Ice Mario for ages, because you could obviously walk on water. Instead, you're like, oh, the music's ramping up, I need to find it, I need to...
No. Aww.
Yeah. So there's 120 stars, as I mentioned earlier. Well, 121. So after you get 120 with both Mario and Luigi, you unlock a final Galaxy, which is just basically a thanks for playing.
Yeah.
These are split... So what did you think of the Comet Observatory first, before we start going into the sub-levels?
I love the Comet Observatory. I thought it was a really nice area to explore. It made me think back at Peach's Castle back in the Nintendo 64 version. Sort of element to it, but a lot more interesting, because each section was very much defined. Like you had the observatory bit, you had the bedroom, you had the kitchen, you had there was very much areas, and I felt that the worlds within those areas reflected the area that they were in as well, to a degree. I mean, how much can you really reflect a kitchen or bedroom? But it still had the same sort of element. And of course, every time you did a Mega Ultra Superstar, Grand Star, whatever it was, then it would open a new room, which was quite nice effect. Like you would fly up, it'd hit the very top, and you could see it was a bit like designed like a Christmas tree. You kind of like worked your way up, sort of thing. Yeah,
and you really felt the progression, because every Grand Star lit up more of the observatory and powered more of it, because that's obviously the whole story, is that the observatory is out of power and needs the stars to be powered up again.
I also like the fact that at the very beginning you can go to any area in the observatory, it's just not powered up. So it didn't stop you or didn't kick you out or didn't like... And some of the areas, of course, were limited to get to because it wasn't powered up. You couldn't get to it because you had to do...
warps. You had to do those like floaty things, didn't you?
But there was still stuff that you could explore. There was nothing to do there until you got the power there, which I thought was nice. It just didn't like... As soon as you walked out of the lit area, it didn't like be like, no, and pull you back sort of thing.
So... There were 6 domes where you could access galaxies from. You've named 2 of them already, in the kitchen and the bedroom. Can you name the other 4?
Garden.
Yep, that's number 6. That's the last one.
Kitchen, bedroom, bathroom.
No.
She never goes to the bathroom. I mean, she's from space, so...
Yeah.
In space, nobody can hear you pee.
Bear in mind, I wouldn't consider the last 3 to be things that you'd
Find in a
find
house?
inside
Oh, there
a
was
house.
I've said I said observatory.
Observatory is the whole thing.
No, but there was like a telescope room. Study.
The library.
The library.
But that's where you do the Rosalina story. There's no
Yeah.
levels from there.
What were the other ones?
So you've got the terrace, which is the first one.
Yep.
You've got the fountain, which is the second one.
Yeah.
And you've got the 5th one, which was the engine room.
Oh, yeah. What, your house doesn't have an engine room?
Not this one. My last one did, but it drove off without me.
Yeah, something wrong with your house. I don't think you're doing houses properly.
I don't know. Depends what type of house. There was also a handful of galaxies that you didn't access through the domes, which were such as like the Green Star galaxies.
Yes.
The Trial galaxies. And the Hungry Lumas as well.
I thought they were going to come up. Yeah, those Hungry Lumas, they're weird.
What, force feeding them treats until they explode?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feed me. I'm so full. Bang. What happened? They died to give you a galaxy. There's a new galaxy. Really? Does it have pieces of Luma all over it?
Yeah, it's a bit dark, isn't it?
It was always a weird concept. I remember finding my very first one and being like, what am I supposed to do? Shoot a little star bit? And they're like, feed me. And you're like, oh, okay.
You asked for this.
This hurts me more than it hurts you.
You think I like feeding you?
Yeah, they're weird.
I won't get you to name all the galaxies, because by my count there are 42.
And we might be here a while.
We might be here a while, so before I start picking some out of the list, which galaxies do you have fond memories of?
The B one.
Or not fond memories of?
The B one.
So the Honey Hive galaxy.
Yeah, I like that
and
one.
And the Honey Climb galaxy. And also there was the Gold Leaf galaxy, which was just a mirror of Honey Hive galaxy.
There was a water one with the penguins. Didn't we do a penguin race or something?
So you got the Loop de Loop galaxy, which is where you ride the manta ray.
Yeah, that was fun. It was just annoying and difficult, but I did like that concept.
You might be thinking of the Beach Bowl galaxy.
Yeah. Were there penguins there?
Yeah, and one of the missions was like stealing a shell off a penguin.
Ah, yes. Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of. There was the lava one I was thinking of, where you got to use ice powers.
Oh, so you're thinking of the one that's like Freeze Flame.
Freeze Flame.
The first mission was ice, the second mission was lava, and the third mission was combination, which was really cool.
Really cool, yeah. And they really worked on the design element and, yeah, the opposites sort of thing. Made me think of Hellfire Peaks. No.
Yes.
Yes?
No, Hellfire Peaks.
From Banjo-Tooie. With the whole, you go through the doorway and now you're on the opposite. I like that element.
Yeah.
Yeah, those ones come immediately to mind.
So, as well, we've got the first one, which is just the Good Egg Galaxy, which is your introduction. I'm trying to just pick out, like, the really interesting one. Well, the ones that personally I'm like, I have fond memories of this. The Space Junk Galaxy, it's the one where you can find Olimar's ship, just floating through it. The Rolling Green Galaxy, which was the one where you had to hold the Wii Remote upright and you had to tilt it to roll on a big ball.
Oh, yes.
That one could be a pain.
That one could be a pain. Agreed.
You've got the Ghostly Galaxy, which we mentioned is where you find the Boo Mario. Gusty Garden, just for the music. Yeah, and a lot of kind of standard... Toy Time is quite fun as well, as a different kind of concept. But a lot of them are just, like, interesting recreations of, like, Mario staples. With a few that kind of change things up a bit. But it was... Yeah, I think there's a nice variety of galaxies. Like, they managed to do a lot with... Considering what Sunshine only had, like, less than 10 areas total. Like this having, like, 40. Just showed that they had a lot more breadth to make a lot more different and interesting levels.
And anyone who plays a Mario game knows a traditional sort of levels that they do. So it was nice, like say one of their Karma levels was where they introduced the bee mechanic sort of thing. And
Yeah.
like everyone knows Mario does lava levels, but with the ice, it made it a bit more original concept rather than just flat out rehashing what they've already done.
Well, they did do like they did the Melty Molten Galaxy, but that was like right at the end.
Yeah.
That was one of the ones in the garden. And that was a proper challenge one. But it was nice to see like them use space as an excuse to like mix the concepts up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing that they've rehashed some of their old levels, like their old concept for levels. I'm just saying it's quite nice that they've revamped some of them as well and taken the whole world gravity element into effect quite a lot as well.
Yeah. Well, in terms of like their methodology, I think it's something they've been doing since Mario 64, but they always go back to this philosophy of the Hakaniwa, which is the concept, which in Japan is a boxed garden.
Okay.
And basically in this box, they see how much they can kind of fit in, like design these interesting gardens within this small box of space. And that's always been like conceptually how they've looked at Mario levels for 3D games.
So what can you do, but by limiting what you can do.
In this self-contained area
Yeah.
kind of thing. Which is interesting. Prankster comets. So these would appear kind of at random and you'd have to do a mission under some special condition. In this game, there were 5 different types of prankster comet. Do you remember any of them?
I remember them being annoying. But weren't there like races or time, or was that a different sort of comet?
No, you got the Speedy Comet,
Yeah.
where you had to do it under a certain time. And the Cosmic Comet, which is where you had to race Cosmic Mario or Cosmic Luigi.
Yep.
So that's 2 out of the 5.
Wasn't it like, was there any like find stuff?
There was collect 100 purple coins, so the purple comets.
Yep. And then the others were...
The Daredevil, which was you had to do it with 1
Oh,
health.
yeah. Leave that alone for a concept. My God.
You've blocked it out. You'd blocked it out of your mind until this moment.
I'm not sure how many of those I actually tried. They're very annoying.
And the Fast Foe Comet, which I don't think there were that many of, but that was just the enemies were all moving fast. So it was usually used for like womps and stuff like that could come down and crush you.
Boom, boom. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing about design, just before we go into the soundtrack, was about the co-op mode with the second hand. Like, it wasn't like full co-op, but it still obviously gave the other person a chance to like join in.
See, I do like a bit of cooperative play, and I do like being involved in gaming, but I was never that impressed by the second player. Like, personally, it felt like barely anything. Yeah, you can shoot the star bits.
I think our problem was always that we both want to play the game.
Yeah, I don't want to just be an assist.
Like, it just possibly wasn't designed for us. Yeah.
I want to play. I don't want to just assist the main player. I actually want to be a second player and actually have a effect on the game. But I suppose quite a few of the Mario games aren't made with that in mind. They're made with first player play. So
yeah, it's kind of the ideology of like the non-gaming partner or family member could join in.
Yeah.
Or you could support them whilst they learned how to play the game.
Yeah.
So it did work, but it just like I think we've said this before, that it'd be nice if they had like the 2 options, like whether they had like proper 2-player for the people that want to do like proper 2-player, but also like the hand mode for people who wanted to just get that little bit of extra support from a friend.
Yeah, and definitely if they had the Luigi element there, like, I understand adding an extra player is difficult, and like if you do split screen or restricted action or whatever, but I still feel that that's something they could do more with in Mario games. But I understand the whole premise is a 1-player game.
I think it's listed under my quirks, but they did, like it seems with every Mario game, they did experiment with 2-player, because it's in the code, and when you turn it back on, basically, if you've got Mario and Cosmic Mario on screen, the camera will zoom out and keep them both in focus.
Okay.
So people have hacked it back in. So clearly it was being worked on for a while, but I don't think it ever got too seriously into development before it was dropped.
It's a hard one, isn't it? Because you don't know whether it's dropped because of how Mario games are and how Mario games always have been, or if it was dropped because the Wii couldn't handle it or they couldn't work it into the specific story. There's lots of elements to consider when you're adding a second player.
Yeah. And it kind of you have to rethink almost every level's design as well, so it can be done both individually or with two people.
I still think the best game that's done it isn't even a Mario game, it's Hat in Time.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that as I was saying that, because I don't think Hat in Time was really too concerned. It was just like, here you go, it's a second person.
They didn't really think about how this would affect, like, collecting the pieces or the gameplay or anything like that. They were just like, you want to play a 2-player? And they didn't even do the easiest version, which was just be a carbon copy of the main character. They made a whole separate character for the second player to be, which I just really appreciated. You are a hat girl, I was bow kid. You're a hat kid, I was bow girl.
Yeah.
It was really nice to have an actual identity as a second character.
And if one of you got to the next loading zone, it just brought the other person forward, so you could continue together.
Yeah, simples.
And as soon as you learn about that, you can either be like, okay, let's wait. I can either wait here and you can have a go at the challenge, or we can just move on together.
Yeah, which I feel has, that game has done it the best recently.
So, soundtrack. The soundtrack of this game is really, really good. But more specifically, it was composed by series composer Koji Kondo and Mahito Yokota. Koji Kondo only composed 4 tracks of the 81 total. But this includes some of the main tracks, such as the Good Egg Galaxy, which was one of the first tracks that was completed. And Yokota has since gone on from Galaxy, and he's composed for most of the mainline Mario games since this one. The game has an orchestral soundtrack for the first time, but it almost wasn't included due to both expense and the team being unsure whether it would suit the game, or whether it'd feel like you were just streaming classical music whilst you played Mario. It was actually Koji Kondo in particular that wasn't convinced of it being a good fit, because he'd only ever seen it being done well in a handful of Nintendo titles. And at this time, Nintendo hadn't done it in many titles at all. So it actually came down to Masafumi Kawamura, the sound director for the game, who wanted both an orchestral soundtrack and for the music to change with what was happening. So he had worked on The Wind Waker, and in The Wind Waker, when you're swinging your sword, it goes da-la, 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 and the music will change with what you're doing.
Yeah.
So they achieved this effect of the music changing whilst Mario's doing different things by having gameplay on a screen whilst the orchestra recorded, so that they could make the adjustments.
Oh, wow.
The example given of this is the Rolling Gizmo Galaxy, where you're on the ball rolling, and the music speeds up and slows down as you speed up and slow down.
That's
so they had
cool.
gameplay of someone playing through the level, and the band was speeding up and slowing down to match it.
Oh,
and then they could program that into the level.
That's crazy. That must be a bit hard for the orchestra, though.
Especially when it gets really fast.
Yeah, that's some skills.
So apparently the expense associated with getting an orchestra for the game put a lot of pressure on the team to get it right. But they actually found that after some initial time for the orchestra to get the feel for the kind of music they'd be recording, it actually became incredibly streamlined, and they only took a few tries to get each track right. So just a few extra little interesting tidbits on soundtrack. The E3 demo used different music for collecting a star. The theme is from the NES Super Mario Bros. From when you defeat Bowser at the end of a castle.
Oh, okay.
You know that...
Mm-hmm.
And then on that beat at the end is when he goes you got a star. Which I think was a change for the better. I think the star theme in this sounds a lot more grand. And the music for Toy Time sounds suspiciously like a Japanese Mario dance mix from 1986 called Mario Syndrome, which you can look up if you're interested. But just a lot of the choices within the track are suspiciously similar with how they've kind of... Because the Toy Time music is like the original Mario theme, but it's like...
Yeah.
And apparently it's just suspiciously similar.
That's funny.
So do you remember the Good Egg Galaxy theme?
Yes.
So the Good Egg Galaxy theme, apparently there'd been some... Because Yokota was doing the majority of the tracks, and Koji Kondo was doing just a handful, apparently it was Kondo, though, that pushed for the more space-like sound, because Makoto was doing more what sounds like traditional Mario in quotes. So what they actually did was when Miyamoto came around, they had 3 different tracks for him to listen to, but didn't say who composed each one. And the one that Miyamoto chose was the Good Egg Galaxy theme, which was the only one of the 3 that Kondo had done. And at that point, Yokota had to concede that Kondo had a point, and they kind of went with his kind of lead, even though Yokota did the majority of the soundtrack.
That's really funny. The whole point is, of course, Mario Galaxy. They're now in space. It needs to be grandiose, needs to be a bit more spacey. And I think it works really well.
I think there's enough riffs on Mario tracks and things as well. Because there is, like, a lot of the classic Mario themes do come back. Like I say, Toy Time is the most obvious example. But, like, the Bowser levels use, like, updates of, like, the Bowser levels from Mario 64. And other good tracks, like the Purple Comet one, which was, like, the one which is just, like almost a remix of the main theme, which is the... Like, it's kind of like... Usually when you've got timed purple coins, and it's, like...
Adds
helps
a bit more.
Bring in, like, the theme of it,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say if you don't remember the soundtrack, maybe it's one to listen to whilst you're, like, doing stuff around the house, because
definitely check it out then.
Yeah, it is I do rate it highly as a soundtrack.
Okie dokie.
So, on to the quirks.
We love a good quirk.
But as with most big games, there's probably a bunch of quirks we missed. So, put them in the comments if there's any really significant ones that we've missed, because there's just so much information about this game out there. But let's go through the ones that I found. So, the first one is that the galaxy in the word galaxy in the Super Mario Galaxy logo is the Andromeda Galaxy.
Oh, wow.
Because somebody found the kind of source image for the graphic that is in the logo.
That's pretty cool.
So there is glitches that you can do in this game. You're not supposed to be able to die in the Comet Observatory, but you can if you do like glitches and you can fall out of bounds.
Mm-hmm.
And also there is a glitch where you can flip a Prankster Comet Luma upside down. So you know that there's the kind of purplish Luma in the hub world that can like reset the Prankster Comets.
Yeah.
Apparently, if you do something before you speak to it, because it will always turn around the quickest way to face you, if you're stood in a certain position, it will flip upside down to face you. Because that is what the game has deemed as the quickest way.
Oh, wow.
So if you're interested more about the glitches, there's a Son of a Glitch video about this that I'll link in the description, because there is some interesting stuff you can do. One technique is used by speedrunners, which allows Mario to spin on slopes, which the game usually, if you're going down a slope, you stop being able to do your spin.
Mm-hmm.
But if you kind of are going backwards up the slope and facing down the slope, you can sometimes get it so you'll keep spinning. And that way you can kind of sequence break, because you can go backwards up slopes that otherwise you wouldn't be able to go up.
Yeah.
There are also Easter eggs and references to other Nintendo properties throughout the game. So the one that we mentioned earlier is that in Space Junk Galaxy you can find Olimar's ship from Pikmin 2, which is one of the planets. In the Toy Time Galaxy, you can find a model of a toy train hidden out of sight beneath some blocks. Toy Time Galaxy also obviously has areas shaped like 8-bit Mario, and then the underside is 8-bit Luigi, where you do the purple coins. In the Rolling Gizmo Galaxy, you can find star bits in the shape of a rupee under the stage, but unless you do some like gimmicky stuff to get to where it is, you would never be able to see it in regular gameplay, which is really weird. There is a planet in Boy Base Galaxy which opens up, and once it's open, it looks like a Pokeball.
That's pretty cool.
So those are like the most well-known ones. In terms of cut content, you can find in the game data the bullies from Super Mario 64. You know, that you have to push into the lava?
Yes.
There is a weird-looking Toad model, which apparently just runs away from you. And a red launch star amongst all the others. So, unknown whether at some point there were going to be something maybe that the red star... Because there is one red star which you get from the Flying Mario mission. Whether that would have unlocked something itself. There's also a lot of unused assets from Donkey Kong Jungle Beat that were left over from that game's development, because I'm guessing they use similar systems. And also you can find stuff like unused planets and things like that. Like we were saying earlier, planets would occasionally be just cut during development to kind of tighten up a level. So there's a number of these in the game's code as well. There is also a regular... So you've got like the bee mushroom and the ghost mushroom.
Yes.
And the spring mushroom. Everything's mushrooms. There is also a model in the data for just a regular mushroom that you'd get that would just be the regular power-up for Mario. But obviously, there is no small Mario in this game. So it goes unused. However, despite the fact it's not used anywhere in the game, if you delete that data from the game will crash because the code still checks for it on launch.
Oh, wow. Okay. So even though you don't use it, it still has to be there.
Yes. Although it was removed along with a number of other unused files for the 3D All-Stars re-release.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm guessing they just tidied it up a bit.
Yeah.
Some other unused bits include that boos, because boos can hold like coins and keys in them in this game. They can also be programmed to hold Goombas in them, Lumas in them, and other items as well if you program them a certain way.
Wonder if it could hold Luigi.
So clearly they were meant to hold. I don't think they were ever meant to hold Luigi, but that would be funny. Him like quashed up into a little ball, like, I'm in a ghost.
This is my worst nightmare.
There is a door in Good Egg Galaxy near the beginning of the first level where you can read that, like, if you want to get onto the roof, you have to go around the other side.
Yeah.
Usually only signs are readable in Mario Galaxy, but to achieve this, all they did was they put a sign behind the door, but close enough to the door, so that you can still... So you're technically reading a sign that's behind the door, but it looks like you're reading the door.
Oh, okay.
So it's just a little cheat, but it's interesting how developers will do that. Like, the same thing is the lava. You know how Ice Mario can walk on the lava?
Yes.
That's because around it, there is, and this is what's done for some speedruns, there is a very thin layer of water.
Oh, okay.
But it's underneath the lava layer, so you'd still get burned if you weren't Ice Mario.
Yeah.
But it creates the ice platforms if you're Ice Mario.
Ah, fair enough. It's very clever how they think of ways around certain problems.
It is, yeah. In the game files as well, and this was in the beta too, Toads originally had star patterns rather than their usual dots on their heads. And Toads in the beta could also transform into rabbits, into the bunnies.
I'm glad that didn't happen though, because it would have taken
That's
bit.
weird.
Yeah, and it would have taken a bit away from the Lunas. Like if the Toads had the stars as well. The whole point is the Lunas are the ones who are living in the Comet.
It might have been that was just for the demo for whatever show. They didn't want to show the Lumas too much.
Oh yeah.
So maybe it was just a placeholder. Yeah. If you get 9,999 star bits, all the coconuts in the game turn into watermelons.
Nah.
For some reason.
Because?
The boss Megalag, who we were talking about earlier, the boss that you have to climb up, was inspired by a cut idea from Ocarina of Time, where at one point you were going to have to climb Ganon to defeat him, because he would grow huge.
Oh.
And I think we actually talked about this idea in our Ocarina of Time episode, but it's been 2-3 years since we recorded that, so I can't remember completely. But basically, it was cut from Ocarina of Time due to hardware constraints and the fact that they wanted you to be able to see the whole of Ganon on screen, which you wouldn't be able to do. But in this, they kind of obviously show the opening cutscene of Megalag, and then you're climbing up him is kind of like the boss battle.
It works, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it's better used in this game than it would have been climbing Ganon.
Oh yeah,
if that makes sense.
I'm glad the way they did Ganon in the end. It was a lot more engaging as a bad guy than just something that you're climbing. I think it would have taken away a lot of his presence to come all that way to defeat the big bad and then not really see him. Yeah.
Although, sticking with Megalag, there is references in the code that there may have been a second boss fight with him later on, but that was not included. Just because there's code that refers to a Megaleg 2.
I suppose,
Mega arm.
Mega arm. Mega right foot. Mega left foot.
Oh, in the Chinese localization of Super Mario Galaxy, in the opening, rather than Kamek telling Mario to enjoy his flight, as he does in all the other versions before he shoots them and he goes off into space, he tells Mario to go to hell.
What? How rude.
It's like, yeah, you tell him.
Yeah. I think someone's been working overtime. Someone's a bit stressed.
It's like, yeah, it was all fun and games until this point, Mario. But can you just bugger off.
Just get out. Doing.
The Skybox and the Ghostly Galaxy and Boo's Boneyard Galaxy is actually the same Skybox, just reused from the Ghost Ship in the Wind Waker.
Oh, fair enough.
So, in our Mario Sunshine episode, we talked about Nintendo of America advertising the game with a big plate of spaghetti.
Yep.
This time, the gimmick was advertising Mario Galaxy by having a photo shoot of Mario with Buzz Aldrin.
Obviously. Why not? Very relevant. He went to space.
In other regions, London had a launch party with Charles Martinet, who's the voice of Mario. In Amsterdam, Nintendo held a photo shoot of Mario and a group of astronauts, recreating the classic picture, raising the flag on Iwo Jima, which is a very famous image from World War II, which seems like a weird choice for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
One, because that image was referencing a US victory over the Japanese in the Pacific War. So you'd think it very strange to...
The Japanese are now using it to merchandise.
Well, yeah, it's very, very strange. But yeah, it was Mario and a bunch of astronauts. Yeah.
Well, in Amsterdam as well, you can just imagine some people like absolutely off their face seeing that and thinking... And just getting so confused. I love that idea.
So you're suggesting that maybe the idea was just some people were high and the people who came to see it were also possibly high?
What? Maybe.
We cannot comment on such things. These are just...
And we certainly do not judge.
We don't judge anyway, yeah. You do you. You raise that flag.
We just question why, out of all the flags, why was it that
well,
image?
no, of all the images to reference.
Yeah. But hey...
So how did the game do? Well, the game did very well. As of 2020, the game has sold 12.8 million copies worldwide and is the 9th best-selling Nintendo-published game for the Wii.
Mm-hmm.
It sold 350,000 units in Japan within its first few weeks of sale. It sold 500,000 units within its first week of release in the United States, which is the highest first week sales for a Mario game in the USA at that time. It was reported that 1.4 million copies of the game were sold in the US in December 2007, making it the highest selling game of the month, and that just within that time, if you think it was only released like mid-November, the game became the 5th best-selling game of 2007. Critically, the game received universal acclaim upon release, getting a ton of perfect scores across the board, or like 9.5s or 9s out of 10. It was followed by a sequel, Super Mario Galaxy 2, making it the first ever 3D Mario game to get a sequel. It was re-released on the Wii U eShop as part of the Virtual Console, and a HD version was released on Switch as a part of Super Mario 3D All-Stars Collection. This game has left a lasting impact on the Mario series. A lot of elements from it have gone on to be referenced and reused in future games, such as the Good Egg Galaxy is a stage in Smash, and also... if you watched our Mario and Sonic at the Winter Olympics episode, you'll know that it was also a stage for the fantasy sports to take place, the Dream events. Rosalina has remained a staple of the Mario series to this day. She's appeared in countless of the side games, and she is also playable in Super Mario 3D World. So yeah, this is Super Mario Galaxy.
So what I always enjoyed playing Super Mario Galaxy. As I said earlier, once my head got around the whole 3D concept of the world, the sphere, and I think sometimes when you go back after not playing a while, once your head gets round that element, it's a very enjoyable game. I think they do a lot with the gravity elements. They do a lot with the enemies as well, and how being either on a planet or somewhere where gravity is questionable can affect gameplay, enemies, everything. I was not impressed with their 2-player. I think they shouldn't have bothered if they weren't going to do it properly, but that's just a personal opinion. I also was a little bit freaked out by those Lumas who said, "Feed me!" and exploded. But if that's my only critique of a pretty spectacular game, I think that's not too bad, really. And it's one that I am looking forward to replaying at some point, just because I have very fond memories of playing it.
Yeah, I still really enjoy Galaxy. It's a very well-crafted experience. It's very polished, especially, you can love 64 and Sunshine, but you can't try and tell me that there isn't any jank in those games. whilst this game has, to be fair, probably some jank, there's times when the gravity will just kind of mess around and I'll be holding the control stick in one direction and Mario will be running in circles somehow because of how the game is trying to recalculate everything. But largely, it's a very polished experience, very smooth, it's very fun. I think I probably prefer Odyssey overall, but then it's so close between them that I could end up changing my mind within a few weeks and then changing it back again a few weeks later. I think Galaxy is like, the levels almost are what you play Galaxy for, whereas I think Mario is more fun to control in Odyssey. Or at least that is kind of my current gut feeling on the two.
I really enjoy Odyssey.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot of that enjoyment comes from certain elements of the game that I feel are very heavily influenced by Mario Galaxy. So I feel a lot of the enjoyment I get from it, I wouldn't have got if Mario Galaxy hadn't been a thing. So, yeah.
It's really interesting that you say that, because when I play... Because I was the same as you. Whilst I played Sunshine sooner than you did, I still played it after Galaxy. So, but I've always thought that like Galaxy is such a natural successor to 64, and actually I think that Odyssey is a natural successor to Sunshine.
Oh, okay.
Because there's the blue coins in Sunshine, which are just everywhere. Really, to me, seems like a precursor to the fact that the moons are everywhere.
Yeah.
Whereas, because Sunshine was so different, Galaxy feels like it's following 64 because of how much it's bringing things back to tradition.
Yes.
Whereas Odyssey, again, starts playing with those traditions like Sunshine did. So it almost feels like it almost fluctuates. Like, we can almost expect the next Super Mario 3D game to be more traditional because the last one was a bit weird. And then it'll go weird again. But you see what I mean?
Yes, I do.
But we'd be interested to hear your comments as well. So when you think of the 3D Mario games, what do you kind of... which are your favourite? We've still got one more 3D Mario game to go. Next week, we are talking about Super Mario Galaxy 2. But let us know what you think of Galaxy 1 and how it compares to the rest of the series.
Please follow us on ABK Studios on our YouTube channel and through our Twitter account. Account? Let's try that again. Please follow us on our ABK Studios, our YouTube and our Twitter account. Please subscribe. We always want to hear your opinions and we always really appreciate them. So just comment in the bottom and we'd love to hear what you think of this video.
Yeah, so this has been our kind of big episode on Mario Galaxy. We're going to do Galaxy 2 next week. I'm really excited to keep talking about this. This is a really interesting set of games and they really do push the boundaries, so that makes them a lot of fun to kind of reminisce on. We hope you'll join us then, but until that time, I have been Phill.
And I have been Vicky.
And we will chat to you next week about Super Mario Galaxy 2. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.